Alright, so let's take a look at Dynamesh in action. Okay, so and look at a couple of the things that we can do with Dynamesh. So I'm going to hit comma here, bring up my light box. I'm going to go to Dynamesh 32. I'm going to double click it. Okay, and that'll open up this Dynamesh project. Now, typically the first thing I do is turn off perspective. All right, we don't need that. All right. And if we open up our geometry tablet, you'll see that under Dynamesh here, it's a resolution of 32, which is exactly what we brought in from our projects panel, the Dynamesh 32. All right, gives us a resolution of 32. We turn on our polyframe, we can see that's what we've got. All right, so it's a good habit not to work with polyframe turned on. I only turn it off and on so you can kind of see what's going on here. All right. So we'll look at some of these buttons in the Dynamesh tab right here. All right. But first of all, just sort of as a general workflow, I'm going to use my move brush. I'm going to make sure that my symmetry is turned on. Okay, there's my symmetry. And you'll also notice too that this Dynasphere that comes in, it's set to this color here. We can change that color. We can change the material. Okay, just give this a second to load. All right, so I can change the material to whatever I want. All right, I'm not necessarily stuck with the material and color that it comes in at. But again, I can change that anytime. I tend to like to leave it the basic material gray color. All right, so I've got my move brush selected. I've got my symmetry turned on. Again, the hotkey for symmetry is X, and if you don't want to do it that way, you can come up to Transform, Activate Symmetry. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start moving this a little bit and sort of look at what would generally be our approach to sculpting using Dynamesh. All right, so we typically work with the lower the lower resolution to start with. All right, so I want to say maybe make a torso here. Okay, and you can see that too, that some of the geometry is getting a little bit stretched down here. Okay, it's not a big deal. Again, I'm just using my move brush, and I can pull some of this out, pull this down here. I can move my model away, and I do this a lot. I move it away if I want to pull down on or affect a larger area, and bring it in a little bit closer if I want to affect a smaller area. All right. So let's go ahead and just say that this is our torso here. All right. Look at our poly frame. You can see that it's kind of stretched. Not a big deal. All right. But again, under blur here, if we look in our Dynamesh tab, blur is set to 2 by default. So I'm going to go ahead and set that down to 0 because blur just sort of softens it as it remeshes. All right, and I want to sort of keep control over how soft that blur is. So I'm going to keep it at 0 because I don't want any blur. All right, hold down Control, Marquee Select, and let go. All right, and you can see that remeshes. There's no stretching anymore. All right. Where it was, right there. All right, and Control, Marquee Select, and there we go. We get that. All right. So this is the sort of approach to modeling that we'll be doing. You'll work with a low resolution for a while. Let's go ahead and I'll show you a couple things here. I'm going to go to the Insert brush here. I'm going to hit B and then I for Insert. And I'm going to use the insert cylinder. All right. I want to make sure that my symmetry is turned off for this. I'm going to do this right in the center here. All right. Undo. Sorry, 1 second here, guys. There we go. All right. Insert cylinder. Click and drag. All right. And when you insert anything like this, you'll notice that the object you're inserting into becomes masked. All right. Right now that's masked. I can't do anything Whoops. Other than insert more of those. All right, now it's masked for a reason so that we can use our move, scale, and rotate tools here. All right, so that we can move this if we want. Okay. We can, let me just click here and drag down. All right, I can make this a little bit smaller. So I can pull this down. I can make changes to this piece of geometry that I brought in here without affecting the piece that I'm applying it to. All right. So again, I can use the scale, move, rotate. Bring that back down here. All right. Go back to draw. All right. Now, if I hold down Control and Marquee Select one time, I will get rid of the mask. And if I Marquee Select again, I will mesh that. I will combine both those items together, both of those pieces of geometry. All right. So this is the beauty of Dynamesh. Okay, we can dynamically mesh pieces of geometry together. Now I can use my clay tubes brush and come in here and just, there we go, smooth that out a little bit. All right. So now we've got a neck for our torso. All right. So that's with group turned off. I'm going to go ahead and turn group on this time, and I'm going to go to brush B, I for insert, and we're going to use the insert, where is it here? What am I looking for? Oh, you know what? It's the wrong brush. 1 second here. What am I looking for? The curve tube brush. There we go. All right. So now with the curve tube brush selected, all right, you need to watch your draw size, all right, because that will determine the thickness of the tubes. All right. This time I'm going to turn my symmetry on. All right. I've got group turned on this time. All right, and I'm going to just draw out from that point. All right. So now you'll see I get 2 tubes here, and I can adjust the and again, the main body right here is masked out. All right. I can adjust the size of these by adjusting the draw size and then clicking on them. All right. Make them a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. All right. I can use the move tool here and move them into place there a little bit. Okay. Go back to draw. And I'm going to turn on my polyframe, and you'll see that we've got different poly groups here because I turned groups on. All right. So if I marquee select or hold down Control and marquee select, I'll get rid of the mask. Control and marquee select, and I'll mesh those together. Now, they are meshed together. All right, but they are separate poly groups. All right. So even if I try to fill this right here with clay, all right, to try and smooth that out, they're still going to be separate poly groups, and they won't fully merge together. All right. Now I can do with those what I can do with other poly groups. If I got poly groups selected, I can select one and hide the other. All right. But it doesn't help me as far as modeling these arms into the torso. All right, because I've got groups selected. So I can turn group off. All right. Make sure blur is set to 0. And hold down Control, marquee select. All right. And now these are all one poly group. All right. And I can add clay in here and smooth that out and do whatever I need to. All right, that's all one model. All right, so this is sort of the general workflow with Dynamesh. All right, we can add geometry to it and merge it together. We can keep polygroups separate if we want to. All right, I can up this resolution if it's starting to look a little bit sparse. I can up the resolution to say 64. All right. Remember, you need to make a change on the model first. Marquee select. All right. So we get a lot more geometry, and I can go ahead and sculpt more high resolution details on here. Okay. Coming in here. All right. Smooth it out. All right. So this is the general approach to working with Dynamesh. All right. We add geometry, we marquee select and remesh it. We can sculpt on it and continue to add more geometry. If I wanted to, I can add some legs, some feet. I can add hands. I could add a sphere for the head. So why don't we just do that real quick. I'm just going to hit B and then I for the insert sphere. All right, make sure my symmetry is turned off. Click and drag. All right. I can use my move brush here and just move this up. Okay. And remember, marquee select, hold down Control, marquee select once to get rid of the mask. Hold down Control, marquee select again to remesh it. All right. So now we've got one solid object that's got some clay on here that we can sculpt into a head. All right. So generally, we can build pieces of geometry up this way. I can still come in here with my move brush. All right. And move some of this around, make adjustments as needed. All right. I can come in and work the clay tubes on the arms and shoulders here, build up some arms, some traps. Okay. So we can work it just like any other model once we Dynamesh it and get our pieces together here. All right. In the next video, I'll come back and we'll show you another one or two things you can do with Dynamesh.